right, everybody. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Listen, let me cut this music off. Sorry. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. My name is Preacher Moss, host of the S.O.S, the Shout Out Show. We are grace. We're blessed. We have two really positive entities on the show. Our show today is a deep and roving and robust discussion with the village auntie, better known as Angela Lindsay Ali. But before that, we have a young organization that is making their stamp here in the state of Texas and also doing it up in Toronto. The group is called One Max, and they have their gala in Houston, Texas this Sunday. I want you guys to check it out. There's information. Go to One Max. I think it's .org. I have to check on that, but I'm going to ask them in a minute. So listen, that's number one. Number two, we have a fabulous guest today as our headlining guest. The other thing I want to bring about, so we do remember, is we do have people who are suffering in Turkey and Syria. Please, whatever you can give in the way of dua, resources, money, please do that. But I want everybody also remember, in the country of Haiti, we still have people who are suffering. And while we have 35,000 have been killed in Turkey, the damage in Haiti was almost 250,000. So let's give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protecting us where we are, allowing us to have our livelihoods and our lifestyles. But at the same time, let's remember that there are people out there suffering. Okay. So what I want to do up front, I want to bring these two young men in. Brother Ali Kazmi and my dear brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How you brothers doing?
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having us. We're doing great.
Man, I'm very excited to be a part of your event this weekend, man. If I'm a person and I don't know about One Max, give me the elevator pitch. Why do I need to be involved in One Max?
Well, first of all, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much, Preacher, for having us on this afternoon. The quick elevator pitch. We'll give you the quick elevator pitch. So MAX is an acronym. So it actually started up in Canada, as Preacher mentioned, roughly about 5 years ago now. We wanted to elevate the Muslim brand within the professional world. And essentially what we wanted to do is, again, the acronym stands for Muslims Achieving Excellence from a professional standpoint, as well as elevating their faiths and ultimately, getting together with other Muslims and really being able to catapult into not just the best in their deen, but the best in the dunya as well when it comes from a professional standpoint. So alhamdulillah, we were able to create an organization up in the Canadian market, which is now nationwide, where we've created a mentorship program, a scholarship program. We've got a women in leadership program and multiple other programs that give a platform to young Muslims to be able to connect with aspiring professionals that have just come out of college or university 5 to 7 years out, or all the way through up until the C-suite. We'd love to be able to accommodate and create a holistic platform for those folks that may have not had it in the past. I know Ali and I certainly didn't have it when we were coming up the ranks. So we'd love to be able to create a diverse set of Muslims that are able to help one another within their professional careers.
So let me ask you this question. Now you're expanding into the United States, Texas in particular. What are the goals? What goals are you trying to achieve moving into the States? Because I'll be honest now, the States is not Canada. So it's a different level of competition, a philosophical understanding about work, achievement, getting ahead, careers. It's a complex transition. So what are you trying to achieve on Sunday?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I think our achievement here is to show the greater Houston population and inshallah, hopefully through the work that we're putting into Houston, show the greater America population of the successes that Muslims have been able to accomplish within the professional world. Oftentimes, we see multiple different narratives through social media or just the media in general about Muslims through a negative limelight. What we'd like to do here through this gala is to provide individuals with insight on Muslims that have achieved at a very, very high level within their professional careers, and also highlight numerous amounts of folks through awards that we'll be giving out at the gala on Sunday, with a little bit of insight on what community work these high achieving professionals are doing as well. So alhamdulillah, if we're able to do both and show people that we could have both the best of professionals in this dunya while still contributing back and taking care of their Islamic duties. That's something that we'd like to accomplish here in the American market.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think Muhammad and I are both transplants to Houston. So what we did when we got here and a big part of Max Texas is creating that platform that's for all Muslims to come together to celebrate accomplishments, various fields and excellences. Like there's so many things that our community is doing that go under the radar because we don't have the right system in place or platform in place for us to recognize that excellence, to celebrate those successes, and to motivate that next generation, right? So everybody's doing these crazy, cool, unique things, and we wanted to be able to kind of find a place where we can bottle that up and share that with our community.
Are you guys open to some of the great aspects that Houston has a tradition that really it follows a certain esprit de corps prophetic tradition, whereby it is the Muslims that establish this core, but the success of the Muslims, like in Houston and cities like Dallas, is that they're able to reach outside of the Muslim bubble, if you will. Are you guys kind of framed for that now, or are you looking at that later? So many people can appreciate and, of course, benefit from mentorship.
Absolutely. So I know, Preacher, you yourself do a lot of magnificent work within the community, and you know how much commitment and time and dedication it takes to be able to set something up from the grassroots. It took us almost about a year and a half to set up our roots here in Texas, build out a strong foundation, and build out a team. And because of that, alhamdulillah, we've been able to run a mentorship program that's been extremely successful, but also have the opportunity to put on a gala like this and do multiple different events that we did in our prior year. So we'd love to be able to expand to multiple different cities, markets. Dallas, as you mentioned, is definitely on our radar, as are many other major metropolitan cities with Muslims. And inshallah, I think as more and more people find out about the organization and the influence that we've had in Canada and hopefully in the greater Texas market, we're going to be able to build out successful, dedicated individuals that'll be able to carry this mission forward within multiple different markets.
Are you guys framed or looking at the visionary aspects of beginning to be able to promote entrepreneurism?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we actually just had a pillar that we built out in Canada during the pandemic. It's specifically called Max Business, where we look to connect young entrepreneurs, folks that may come from underprivileged communities, or folks that may have had not the same opportunities as others coming up the ranks, with people with high business acumen, venture capitalists, or people that are in private equity, to be able to provide them with business guidance, provide them with ideas on how to come up with business plans for entrepreneurs, and ultimately come up with proposals on how they can secure funding and run their businesses successfully.
Alhamdulillah, man. So listen, we're mighty happy that you guys popped on the show today. Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience with the time remaining?
I think, we'd like to remind everybody that the gala is coming up this weekend. So it's a culmination of a lot of the efforts that we put in here.
I heard a good looking black man is going to be there too, but I just forgot to throw that in.
We've got.
Oh wait, hold on. Shaq's coming to the gala. This is news to me.
There you go. All right, easy there. I tell the jokes, brother. I tell the jokes.
No, but we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great night. You're going to be emceeing, and we're really excited for that. And just bringing together Houston in a new way, in a new positive way, and under the professional umbrella. Muhammad, I'm sure you've got some more things to say on that, though.
No, I just think I'm extremely excited. We've got some talented individuals coming out. Preacher will be there, so I'm really excited to be able to get an opportunity to learn from so many individuals that are coming out. There will be an opportunity to see Muslim professional excellence highlighted. There will be awards, there will be dinner, and most of all, there's going to be a panel at the end where we've got some great professionals at the highest level of their respective careers, and then there'll be networking. So it'll be an opportunity for you to be able to get in front of these folks that you might not necessarily otherwise, and really get your name out there and learn something from them as well.
Let me say this before I let you guys go. What I like from the first time I was reached out to about this program, about this gala, what I really, really liked is that there's a real strong focus on inclusion. And so one of the reasons that I felt that I would partake of it, because I normally don't like to work on Sundays, let's just be honest. I like the fact that you, as a forethought, looked that we need to be very inclusive. So there are different communities that will be coming out. There are different communities that are excited that they've already been reached out to. Sometimes we get lost in the sauce with promotions and our clicks and things like that. So, I just want to give you guys kudos for that. And on behalf of all the groups that are normally not included in these type of things, just want to say thank you. All right.
We appreciate that, and Max is all about being as inclusive as possible. We'd love to be able to highlight Muslims as a whole, so they come in different shapes and forms and different ethnicities, and we'd love to be able to highlight all of that and show the excellence that multiple people are doing in their respective communities.
All right, man. We love you guys for coming on. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. All right.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, preacher.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, man.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Shout out for our brothers coming on the show today. Shout out to One Max doing some wonderful things. Before we get started, I got to shout out my family, if you will. Oh, my family, the Shout Out Show family, the Shout Out Show soldiers who have tuned in. They are faithful. Let's give a shout out Sister Ree, who is not only my sister, but also Preacher Moss's dietitian craft services, so the brother doesn't die of not malnutrition, but no food. Appreciate that. My main man, Altar Rashid. Altar, you could probably tell us about One Max up in Toronto, man. But if you don't know about it, now you know about it. That was also a plug for you, my dear brother. Thank you so much. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My little brother JT. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Beloved, nice to see you in the spot. My main man, Eric Carter. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, man. Tuning in. This is the faithful that we have. And I want to give a shout out to my auntie, better known as Aunt Maxine, but she is the proprietor of BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. She said, Muhammad, your elevator pitch was excellent. We are very, very engaging. Aunt Maxine, hang on. I got a banger today. I got a sister today. Now I could have got some sisters, but this has made me work on my research. Look, I had to actually get on my phone. So I'm happy. So here's what we're gonna do. I didn't really get to do it, but sister is in the back. So Satana, let's just roll out opening credits like we do. When we come back, it's all about the wisdom of Village Auntie. We'll be right back here on the Shout Out Show. All right, let's get ready to rumble. It's going down right here on the Shout Out Show. This sister's made me do my research. I'm going to tell y'all, I'm not a big fan of the live. Let's just be honest. I'm not a big fan of the live on IG because, you get to own your content. That's a whole nother thing. One day I'm flipping on the live and I see Village Auntie and I hear this chirping about the Village Auntie. Who the Village Auntie is? I'm Preacher Moss. Who the Village Auntie is? Lo and behold, I knew the Village Auntie. I just didn't know the Village Auntie. Allah has a strange way of putting things in your path. And when you don't look at it the first time, maybe it's you wouldn't have valued it the same way that you value it now. So the person I'm being on the stream right here is a certified sex health expert. Now, let me say, now, not like Dr. Ruth. What you do? We ain't talking about little Dr. Ruth. We're talking about somebody certified. Dr. Ruth was certified, but that was Hollywood. This woman came to us 2018 at the Black Muslim Psychology Conference in Philadelphia. I was there. I believe Sister Satana was there. And there were a great many people there. Dr. Bilal Ware was there. It was a lot of heavyweights there. And the talk was about this woman. Let me give you the name of the talk. The name of the talk she gave was this. very specific. Reclaiming the village auntie, the sacred role of sexuality in traditional African societies. I'm like, whoa. Traditional African sacred. It was a lot. That's a lot in a sentence for a brother to kind of work out. But we worked it out. And what we worked out is, and by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, the blessings of mercy of Allah, that we have the sister on our show. And I want you to understand that her discussion is a larger part of a collective of discussion that's going around our community. We just have her here for today. Brothers and sisters, please welcome to the Shout Out Show, Sister Angelica, but we call her the Village Auntie.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullah, wa barakatuh. What's going on there, sisters?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. I'm in Phoenix.
Before we get down to it, can you please give your husband a big hug?
I will.
Just give him a big hug, tell his brother, say what's up. It's ironic. I knew your husband way back. Were you married back then when I met him?
Yes, we were. We were married. I was pregnant.
Okay, that's why he didn't come to the show.
That's why I didn't come to the show. You know what? When he came to see you, it was one of those like, I'm going to the masjid to pray Asr, but then he would come back until like, midnight kind of things. It was like one of them kind of things.
Yeah, but I ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm pleading the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. Let me put this in context for you, sister, my dear sister. 1985, a movie comes out. It's called The Color Purple. I'm watching it. I'm trying to engage in it. There's parts where it's like I understand. There's parts where I'm horrified. I'm like, this is how we get down. And it's literally like, are we this dysfunctional in the context of a Black community in terms of our sexuality, our gender relations? It was a mess of a movie when I looked at it. But give me a break. I was only 19, well, really 18, trying to figure this thing out. And what I remember about The Color Purple is it got nominated. To this day, it is the movie that had the most Academy Award nominations and never won. And I looked at it and I said, Then you flash forward a couple years and somebody introduces me to Bell Hooks, Ain't I a Woman, and then after that, the outlaw culture. And then I began to see that there's so much out there that we're not discussing. So when you were giving your presentation, and I'll be honest, I didn't get to see the presentation. My mother had a health issue. I had to go home. You could check it out. But it was a talk because we're not having honest conversations. When I check you out on a live, I see people who are very, very, they're well-meaning, but they're very incomplete in the context of how they feel. And incomplete in the context of how do I relate to other people. My question to you, first one, and you can compartmentalize all you want to. What happened to understanding love?
That's the question.
What happened to understanding love? It seems so complicated these days. It seems that we capitulate to things that we didn't capitulate to back in the day. And that people are finding themselves in spaces that they know they don't belong in, but they don't even know how to get out of. What happened? What do you feel happened?
Colonialism happened.
Okay.
Slavery happened. But I really think what happened is we forgot about Allah. Because really that is the source of all love in this dunya, is a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe that the emptiness that you see in people when they're on my Instagram lives, or that they're commenting, or like, people who are having classes, the emptiness that people come with is because they're trying to fill a hole in their heart that can only be complete through the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what happened to love. We have confined love to, yesterday was Valentine's Day. So we've confined love to red roses and chocolate and sex. And we have forgotten that love is also in your neighbor taking your trash can and putting it back in your backyard when you forget. Love is holding your 5-year-old's hand on their first day of school. Love is your best friend coming over with a bucket of chicken and saying, girl, we're going to watch the new Bling Empire. Like all of that is love. We're surrounded by love, but we've bastardized it by reducing it to its basest forms. We've taken all the spirituality out of love. We've taken all of the connection out of love, and we've turned it into a transactional arrangement between human beings. So God isn't present, and that's why it feels so flat and so empty.
Is it the issue with God not being present that it also lends to the idea that people don't understand the sacred nature of love?
100%. If God is not present, how can it be sacred? If God is not acknowledged, how can it be sacred? Which is why, when people push back and say, oh, Sister Angelica, you're a visibly practicing Muslim woman. You shouldn't be talking about sex. You shouldn't be talking about love. I'm like, I'm exactly who should be talking about it, because I know God and I know love through God. We have to re-infuse the idea of love in a contemporary society through this vision of God, a complete vision of God.
But I look at it like I was telling you about the color purple. And here's the thing about the color purple that really bothered me, that despite what I saw, I knew that those things were really countercultural to the things that actually made us successful, helped us achieve. Like this was a fact, but what was missing is that there was no let me pray about it. There was no let's congregate about what we can do. The sisters are the closest thing to that whole aspect of sacred love. The entire film, the film could have just been about them talking about these Negroes are crazy. Daddy crazy, Mr. Crazy, everybody crazy. Harpo's crazy. And what the thing is, the alignment between the two daughters is important. They asked Bell Hooks, what her gender was, what her sexual preference was, and she said, I am what'd she say? Something past, she said queer past gay, which means queer, not gay. And she frames it that what I am averse to is all the things around me that don't let me live out or express who I am as an individual, particularly as a woman, a Black woman, if you will. And I thought it was an interesting part because a lot of some of the stuff you talk about really reflects that people don't understand that you have to live these things out. Mm-hmm. Like sexuality can't be lived in a box. Mm-hmm. It can't be compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. Sexuality is a lifestyle. Like I heard you say that and I was like, man, people need to really, really understand it is a lifestyle. You can't check your watch on it. It is one of those things. I'm like, but where do we get to a system who's like, people don't understand that? Mm-hmm. Like we're in a situation, maybe you could speak to this. A lot of marriages are failing because people are married 2, 3, 4 years and don't understand sexuality, and intimacy is out of the window. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between sex and intimacy, which I think is really critically important to understand. Intimacy is the act of gaining closeness to another person. You can have intimate friendships. Eddie Kendricks had a song called Intimate Friends, right?
Yeah, great song.
Very good song. But we've put sex and intimacy right on top of each other. And within marriages, Esther Perel, she's a Belgian psychotherapist and sexual health educator. She said, in modern times, we have relied on our marriages to fulfill every need that we have. My husband has to be my best friend. He has to be my confidant. He has to listen to my work stories. He has to help me navigate family issues. He's helping me raise the children. And then on top of that, he's supposed to be a passionate lover. He's supposed to remember my birthday. He's supposed to rub my feet. In traditional societies, we had a village of people that could fulfill some of those roles for us. Your spouse didn't have to be that one person. So that's the misunderstanding of intimacy. Then when you put sex on top of it, especially inside of insular religious communities, one of the things that I said at the Black Muslim Psychology Conference that I'll say again is that African Americans within popular culture are seen as being very sexually promiscuous.
Yes.
The lived reality, and you Black and I'm Black, right? The lived reality is that we have very prudish upbringing. We have very much like, you don't need to shave above your legs because who's going to be coming in there, right? you need to wear pantyhose to church, right? You can't be like, we're very like about the body and about sex. A lot of that is remnant of generational trauma from slavery. So you have people who get married and they're like, I don't know what to do. We're not sexually compatible. And I'm like, sis, you ain't never had sex before. How do you know you're not sexually compatible? Like maybe you're starting at the end point and you're not looking at sexuality as a spectrum of exercises, activities, emotions, and connections that happen in the lead up to a pleasure-filled experience. You're trying to start at the end point rather than allowing sexuality to develop naturally. But because that's not how a lot of us were raised, because a lot of us misunderstand our religion, no matter what religion it is, that is why we have these dysfunctions within our marriage.
You know, this reminds me of a conversation of, I was performing at a prison and the brothers started talking about sexuality in the prison. And it just came up, you know, it's prison. It is what it is. And the brothers talked about, you know, this wanting need of love, despite the circumstances, that the relationships that they have with their significant others on the outside, and in some cases, significant others on the inside. He said that this should not be looked at as some insular incident, that this is going on all the time. He said, and you can turn your head, he said, but you can't turn your heart. So I think, you know, what you're saying, I'm 100% going to sign off on that. But I'm also going to ask the question, you know, where are we in the context of having honest conversations about intimacy, about sex, and in those two things around it, spirituality, that the connectiveness is out of whack. I always talk about alignment, if you will. But the paradigm shift has been really crazy. Like you want to have fun, spend about 20 minutes on Instagram reading relationship stories. I hate to laugh at dysfunction, but ha ha. But it is, you know, I always say Instagram is a place where you lose yourself, you lose your spirituality. That's what it is. So how can you, you know, and you have people who come on IG and social media platforms. You know, what is it about you think that draws those people to that space?
So I call myself the village auntie because I've been an auntie since I was 9 years old. Literally in my family, I have 16 nieces and nephews, and I have, I think, 6 or 7 great nieces and nephews. So like I'm an auntie. I think people gravitate towards me because I like to infuse humor. I think I am welcoming. I have a non-judgmental framework, and I share a lot. I'm a storyteller, so I share a lot about my life. I like to say that I'm the auntie who's not afraid to tell you how raggedy I was at the reggae club at age 22. Right. I'm not the auntie who's like now married with children, teaching like Islamic school, and I don't have a past. And when I share things about my life, it's not to expose like any past sins. It's to say like, we have lives too. We lived too. And I think people gravitate towards that messaging because it comes across as authentic. You've met me before in person. Yes. I'm the same person in person as I am on Instagram Live. I don't have a filter for authenticity that I turn on and turn off when I'm on social media. And I think people,
I think that's the thing that's refreshing. So I don't want to say as a man, you know, as a man, when I tune in, I understand that there's a wavelength that's going on these IGs, but it's inclusive if you are of the mindset that you want to learn something, that there's a quality here whereby the information is being shared. Maybe it's not going to you can't directly benefit from it, but education is something that's cumulative. So sometimes I can come back and check and see what cumulative that you were talking about.
You're so funny. Every time I see you pop up in the live, sometimes I know what I'm going to talk about. And in my head, I'm like, he ain't going to be here long.
And I'm not a live guy, but I tune in for your lives.
But sometimes, like, I think there was even one time when you were like, whoop, time to go. And we were talking about something like, it had nothing to do with sex, had to like do with menstrual health or something. But I think that's something that people don't really understand is there are so many brothers who consume the knowledge and information on my platform, because education is education no matter who it comes from. So I have a group of brothers, I call them like the Village Goon Squad, and they show up to lives, they access the information, and I think that just shows that there's a need for it.
I think that, well, that's the thing. We're going to take a break, pay a few bills. We're really going to lay out the next part of this conversation. We'll be right back with the Village Auntie. Don't you move. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now is the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back with the Village Auntie.
That song is going to be in my head.
I'm sorry. I apologize in advance.
I love that. I work in public health, and I'm like, we could have used that song like 2 years ago. It was perfect.
Hopefully, we don't have to bring it back.
Inshallah.
We actually shout out to Convenient Urgent Care, they're one of our sponsors, and they've been holding us down for a lot of years. So they'll be a part of our Ramadan 30 for 30. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring you back for one of our nights on Ramadan 30 for 30, inshallah. Here's something that I love. That when you talk about a lot of things, you're gracious enough to talk about Africa. I almost say you're like the Village Auntie is international. She's African, she's American, she's all of these things. I know you're connected with I always say I should get his name wrong. Sheikh
Mahi Sisi.
Sisi. In fact, our opening music was done by Taurus Mateen.
Oh, mashallah.
So Taurus is one of my good friends.
Nice.
There's something always lost in transition when we start talking about spiritualism in Africa and how it's applicable to African Americans. Now, I know we deal with white supremacy, we deal with anti-Black racism, anti-Black Muslim racism, but these are terms we use right now. But that powerful, I want to say that powerful potion, that powerful formula is not translating. Like you figure like in times when you're dealing with desperate times that you would look for things that work. A lot of times when you're talking about relationships, sometimes I see in the live or I feel in the live that people are like, what is this thing called Africa that she's talking about? Why is she talking about spirituality? Almost like, do they have Muslims in Africa that are spiritual? How did they, the cultural forbearance that you put out is it's extremely powerful. And what I like about it is you teach off of it. I'm a former teacher, so I love curriculum. So that's one of the other reasons why I watch, because people don't understand that you're giving them a whole lot of gems, but you're giving them curriculum. You ain't trying to choke them. Yeah, we don't want to do that. but we want to make sure that the nourishment is given in the proper quantities.
Mhm.
You know, when you're talking about African spiritualism, which is, I want to say, not not well perceived. It's not well presented.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, we have a picture of Islam in America that we fight, and I imagine that you deal with it too. But when you're talking in this space about sacred spaces, and the people in sacred spaces that you reference are Black
Mhm.
Africans, how do you do that? How do you pull it off?
I do that because I have a degree in African studies, African and African American studies. I'm a lifelong, I call myself a community scholar. So I don't have a PhD, but I definitely have the library of one. And I have read and written like a person who's a college professor. I have had a lifelong love affair with reconnecting to my roots as a woman of the African diaspora. So it was critically important for me to know my history. And when I converted to Islam at the age of 23, it was because I saw a book in a used bookstore that had Muslims from Nigeria. And I was like, they got Muslims over there? Because I'm from Detroit. Detroit is the home of the Nation of Islam. I knew Nation of Islam. I knew more science in America, right? So it's just a part of who I am. And I think it's very, very important to inculcate that idea of spiritual connection as Black people to Africa, because we have shuyukh who don't just build masajid, right? They build cities. Sheikh Ibrahim Niass, Bai Niass, we call him. He built the city Medina Bai. That's my spiritual home. It's very important for us to acknowledge that we have a strong spiritual legacy as African Americans, and that's been sort of taken away from us due to the anti-Blackness that we experience in a lot of mosques. So when I'm talking to people and I mention my sheikh, and I talk about Sheikh Ibrahim Niass, and I talk about qasidas, and I talk about taking a spiritual retreat to Medina Bai, it really is just sort of planting seeds of thought so that people will say, well, who is this person, and where is this place, and how can I get there? Because there's a concerted effort on behalf of my shuyukh and my spiritual teachers to reconnect that tie that was broken through the Ma'afa, through the African Holocaust. So I bring that about. And I think the way that I do it seems so seamless because I live it. I don't just talk about it. I live it every day. I talk to my sheikh all the time. I go visit Senegal. I do fundraising efforts there. And it forms the basis of so much of my work, especially when it comes to talking about spirituality and sexuality. It's rooted in traditional African pleasure practices, which we don't even really talk about. It's rooted in traditional West African women's healing modalities. And so for me, my work is a part of that reconnection. And I feel like it's a part of my DNA as a Black woman to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, to expand on that, the whole idea of the modality of Black sexual expression, we don't hear about that a lot.
No, we don't.
Black sexual expression is like a bad word.
It is. Well, no, Black sexual expression, we think it's Cardi B, we think it's Megan Thee Stallion, no shade to them, right? But that's all we know is this.
But that's the hypersexualization.
It is.
That's the Hollywoodization of Black sexualization, Black sexuality. I have my own feelings about. I almost feel like when it comes to the African American Muslim positioning here in the United States, so like being on a bus. Like at one point there was no bus. We had to get a bus, and then we drove the bus, and everybody jumped on. Hey, I'm Muslim too. They jumped on the bus, and somebody said, hey, don't worry about driving the bus. We're driving the bus. And then they're driving the bus, and they stop everywhere they need to stop, but they're just stop, but they don't stop there. Mm-hmm. And they go to the next stop, and now you have to go to this stop, and you got to go back 2, 3, 4 stops back, and people go, oh, it's okay, you've got to your stop, but that's not the point. Mm-hmm. There was a destination for me to be to, and before you even got in this situation, this discussion, I was already at that stop. That's where the bus started. Mm-hmm. And I feel that way these days when we talk about sexuality. I go to these conferences, the Isnas, the Mass, and things like that. And I want to say the rain dance that they do around these things is amazing. Like You need to love your wife, brother, but
Mm,
we don't say go tell your wife I love you.
mm,
You know, you need to do this and that, but it's not. You need to build consensus in your house.
mhm.
You know, it says this, it says that, but what do you say? You know, and I guess the antipathy is like we're further regressed now.
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah.
felt like with COVID, people kind of found out who they were married to, who you've been dating all these years,
Mhm, mhm.
and they got out of the spaces like, yeah, this is a very big problem in the Muslim community, and now we have a youth problem
Mhm,
because now those issues are being tied into mental health issues.
mhm.
So, if you can you tell us about some of the aspects of mental health? Why sexuality is so important to our mental health?
So sexuality is a part of the spectrum of health that a person is involved in, right?
Mm-hmm.
To separate sexual health from mental health is like separating food and water. One feeds into the other. It's very
Mm-hmm.
important to feed one into the other. Mental health is extremely important because when we look at certain things like anxiety, depression, certain cognitive challenges that people may have, it can come because of the shame and trauma that they have around sexuality, for example. And the fact that our community does not want to talk about mental health and they don't want to talk about sexual health just further exacerbates that problem. Because when you have a health concern, and sexual health is a health concern, it's just as important as any, if you go to the dentist, you go to your cardiologist, you go to your general practitioner, sexual dysfunction is just as important. When you do not have a safe outlet for that, and when you're shamed for wanting to talk about that, it can absolutely create mental health challenges. Conversely, mental health can affect your sex life within your marriage. So, if you are dealing with mental health challenges that are not being addressed because it's shameful to talk about that publicly, then that can absolutely have an effect on your sexuality. So, those are two spheres that I operate in very regularly, and I see them feeding off of one another. And when one is not properly tended to, it exacerbates the severity of the other one.
Well, I think and it's a very delicate balance. Like when do we start talking to our youth about their sexuality?
Oh, we start talking to our youth. As a mother of 4 children, you start very early. When you talk to your child about sexual health, people say, astaghfirullah. When I say this, I said, start at the age of 3. They said, why would I talk to my child about sex at the age of 3? You talk to them about sexual health, and you start with what? Cleaning yourself after you use the bathroom. As Muslims, we make istinja, right? You have to clean your body. You have to talk to your child about how to clean themselves properly. You talk to them when they start into preschool or going to Quran school, parts of their body that they shouldn't show to their classmates. My son was 4 years old, and the preschool teacher called me and said he was going around showing all the boys that he had a penis. I said, okay, it's time for us to have the conversation with him. You start early on with getting children to learn about and protect their bodies. And then you start to move through the cycles. I have a 17-year-old. Now, this is the conversation that I'm having with him about relationships. We had the sex talk when he was 12 years old. And we push the sex talk up early because
Mhm.
he's learning. You think that if you don't teach your children, they just are not going to know. No, they're just going to learn from an insufficient source that's outside of their deen, that's outside of their culture. They're going to learn from TikTok, from Instagram, from all of these other apps. They're going to learn from people at school. So why not have that conversation first and start from the groundwork of protection and cleanliness, because these are two things that as Muslims we have to guard. It has to start very early because you're right. We have a lot of problems with sexual dysfunction amongst our youth, masturbation, porn, serial relationships, people engaging in sex acts because it's not penetrative sex. They think that they're still virgins. And I'm like, no, boo boo, you're doing all kinds of things that could be putting you at risk spiritually, physically, and mentally. This is why we have to have these conversations with our youth. I'm very passionate about the youth conversation because I see what happens to adults who are just coming into a knowledge of who they are sexually and how traumatizing that can be.
Well, I think the thing that, and I'm saying this because I remember sex education when I was in elementary school. The picture gets wavy,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember they took all the boys,
Mm-hmm.
went to one room. They took all the girls and went to another room.
Mm-hmm.
We watched a film on reel, and we would we would terrify
It's scary.
It's like I went out like, Mr. Moss, what did you think of the film, Mr. Moss? I was like, I thought I liked girls, but not now.
Right.
But you know what? There was nothing to clean that up.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of we talk about sex education, it's not the idea of sexual evolution. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the procedural parts of this is a rite of passage, the aspect of leadership, the aspect of having a family, these, and they're not things that are, they're good things in the aspect of being men and good things in the aspect of being women, because you create a space for expectation. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when we're watching stuff, and maybe you could speak to this, I know you can, the expectations are just, I mean, I'm a comedian. Sometimes I'm like, I remember a brother trying to tell me, this, I want this woman, I want this type of woman, and a long thing, I want this woman. I said, well, he said, do you understand? I was like, well, what about a woman with legs? You miss legs. What about a neck? A woman with a neck, no legs, no neck. That might not work out. Oh, you're being facetious. I'm like, no, because these are things that you're not talking about. Mm-hmm. Physical attributes. You can tell me all the spiritual stuff. Mm-hmm. But, we know if somebody look like a booger wolf, unless you're in the booger wolves, you the expectations, and we're vain. Mm-hmm. We like what we like. Mm-hmm. But here and again, the expectation, and I heard you say that on one of the lives, like, sisters, I love you, but your expectations.
Sisters get upset when I say that, but I always say anybody can get it. I'm not gonna protect someone's feelings because we're the same gender. Anyone can get it because it's a reality. I've been married. We're heading into our 19th year of marriage. And I tell sisters and brothers, the expectations around marriage are warped by romantic movies and sitcoms. The reality is that most of us don't know what we want when we get into a relationship, but we've been so starved for any form of physical affection all of our lives that we just rush into the first train smoking, the first relationship that accepts us and validates us. We want to be a part of that. And that creates these warped expectations where you look on Instagram, you look on social media, and you're like, I want that. You don't even know what that is. This is why I walk through the process of using dua, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send you what is good. And then you go through a list of what am I looking for? Who am I first? Who am I as a person? What am I looking for in a relationship? And then trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deliver that to you. I tell sisters all the time. I had a sister who turned down a brother who was everything that she was looking for, but he was not 6'5". And I said, sis, why does he have to be 6'5"? She said, I love tall men. I said, but sis, you're 5'2". Like, you're 5 feet 2 inches tall. He does not have to be 6'5". You can love a tall man, but a brother that's 5'8" is tall to you. Right. So it's this idea of realistic dreams versus warped expectations that we have. And a lot of that comes because we're not having these conversations in our home. We're not having them in our masjids. We're not having them at, our big conferences. And I have to, just forgive me, but I have to circle back to this. The mass, the ICNA, the ISNA, every time there's a conference, young people will message me, Auntie, you should be here. Auntie, how come they have never invited you to speak? And I just have to say, I feel like we don't want to have these types of conversations in the community because I don't get invited to spaces like that. Well, but the reality feel like we need to have these kinds of conversations.
And now I'm going to speak to that because I deal with the conferences. What I don't like is they do know about you, but it's this weird thing that somehow you have to put in time for them to recognize, oh, geez.
Okay, so let me
wait. The scenario is you need to ride the bus a little bit more.
Okay, so
that's not gonna happen. But please,
let me explain. I'm from the Motor City. Okay, so let me just talk my talk real quick. I don't do this often, but just let me make it clear. I'm from the Motor City, so I might have built the transmission for that bus. I have been doing this work since 1998. I have over 15 different certifications in sexual behavioral, and emotional health. I write national curricula that are rubber stamped by the CDC. I've been a trainer for the CDC and for SAMHSA. I work in public health. I'm the highest ranking visibly practicing Muslim woman in public health for the last 20 years in the field of HIV and STD management. So I always tell people, just because you just heard of me does not mean that I'm new. And I'm not campaigning to be on anyone's conference circuit.
And you don't have to be.
Right. But the thing is that I have the ear of young people. That's who we need to get. It's not the people our age and older. We need to get to these young people, and we have to create spaces for dialogue because they want to get married. They want to have sexually fulfilling relationships. They want to have pleasure. They want to know Allah. They want to love Allah. So we need to be able to open spaces. If it's not me, let it be someone, because the youth need this, and they deserve that from us.
Well, once we get off, I need to talk to you.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. I'm going to try and talk to you today just for 5 minutes. So listen, tell us what are you going to be doing. You know, we have some banners. Where can we find you? Where can we see you? Where can we read you? Where are your works published? Are they published on villageauntie.com? Do you have white papers that we can go through? You probably do. You know, I know that your next workshop is going to be in Seattle. 24th through the 26th, which is upcoming. We will continue to actually promote that through next week. You won't be here, but we're going to give Village Auntie some love off the show, making sure that people go and check that out. You know, I love the fact that you are a teacher, and I used to be a teacher, and I know the importance of having good curriculum. Like I said, this is one of the reasons I watched it live. Some people turn in, it's Village Auntie. I'm like, yo, you finna get taught today. Oh, you finna get a lesson today. Where does that come from? The aspect of teaching, but also trying to nurture. A lot of times in teaching, it's always difficult to nurture because you were dealing with outside sources. You got to get them ready for a test. Yeah, I taught severely most disturbed kids. I taught special ed. So the nurturing was so dysfunctional. Because it wasn't steady, it was situational. It was episodic. I love the kids, but this is the nature. This is the machine we're dealing with. I find that on a consistent basis that you're able to give that teaching, but the nurturing is so organic. Where does that come from? Does that come from Village Mama, Village Daddy, that made it down to Village Auntie? Speak on it.
So I'm a hyper feminine woman. I'm very feminine, and I know femininity coaches. I'm not that, but I very much lean into the feminine nature of being a nurturer. I was the kid who was making sure that everybody had lunch. I was the kid who was checking on, my friends who were sick. That is just an inherent part of who I am, and I love the aspect of bringing that to my online work. That's why I call myself the Village Auntie. And Auntie is like your second mama, but she's your cool mama. Like, you can't tell your mom that you burnt the chicken and went out and bought a new rotisserie one and cut it up and lied and said that you cooked it, but you can tell your auntie and you can laugh about it. Your auntie can hold your secrets. She can also hold your hand, and she can hold your heart. So I think I love that you see that, because I hope that's what people feel. And I feel, I'm not going to say I'm an empath, but I definitely feel the hurt and the trauma that people are carrying. And if they can just get a little bit of love and care, I feel like it just goes so much further. And my mother is very nurturing. My mom's a clinical psychologist. My father was very funny. I say he was a cross between Red Fox and Richard Pryor. So I get a lot, guys. Yep, I get a lot. I grew up on them. I get a lot of my humor from them. But I also think being nurturing, that's just what Black people do. That's why we have the whole cookout conversation. We always trying to invite somebody to the cookout, because that's just.
But I said nurturing, but also nourishing.
Alhamdulillah. That means there's something of value, because you can be nurturing, but in order to be nourishing, there's something of value. And I do see my work as a very deep discipline. I read a lot. I research a lot. I wrote a book. I'm working on another book. I have a newsletter that I put out every week. I have
you're out there. You're putting in the work. I'm inspired. I am inspired. But I'm gonna step out of the way because, in one of her rare appearances on the Shout Out Show, my executive producer Sister Tana has some questions. I'm gonna go get the tea and the biscuits.
Okay. Inshallah. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. I don't think I can hear you.
Sister Tana, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Tea and biscuits.
Team crumpets, please. So, alhamdulillah, this is, one of the shows that we were certainly looking forward to having. So I do have a few questions. I know you were talking about the youth, but I do want to address, how would you recommend, people of the aging and menopausal group address sexual health? Are there resources? Can you talk to that aspect?
Sure. And I count myself as one of the people who is careening quickly towards menopause. I think menopausal women and perimenopausal women are ones that are often left out of the sexual health conversation. But menopause is such a special time and it's so misunderstood. So in terms of resources, that's one of the things that I've said that I was going to focus on for 2023. Youth and women who are experiencing menopause. But there are also resources like the Black Girl's Guide to Menopause, which is a podcast that's excellent. There are lots of other resources that are out there where people are just giving information, debunking myths around menopause. And when it comes to sexual health, it's not just hormonal imbalances and vaginal dryness and things like that, but also what does pleasure look like in this menopausal phase? When I teach rites of passage, I teach about women who are menopausal and I call them discoverers because you're discovering your body anew. It's like you're going through a second puberty, a puberty of the mind, and it's a different kind of transformation that your body is undergoing. There's also a book that I would recommend if I could remember the title of the book. I might have to get back to you later, but yes, I think that's a conversation we need to have more regularly.
Definitely. And so you start to talk about it. Your program, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Foundational Womanhood is a 12-week rites of passage program. It's the flagship program for the Village Auntie Institute. And we combine decolonial praxis, so decolonial education, with traditional African women's education through the lens of women's empowerment. So it's not a femininity masterclass. It's not group coaching. It's nothing like that. We talk about being stewards of the earth. We talk about recognizing generational trauma. We talk about our personal and collective histories. We talk about establishing boundaries. We talk about the importance of sisterhood and connection and reclaiming our connection to our womanhood in a way that is not performative. So we don't talk about lipstick and like making dinner. Like those are things that people want to talk about when they talk about women. I want to know, how do you reclaim the beauty rituals of your grandmother? Right? How do you nurture the earth? How do you cultivate the creativity within? And I'm proud to say that we've delivered this program for the last 3 years. We've graduated 341 women. We have a rites of passage organization. There's sisters all over the globe. And the youngest participant that we've ever had was 19. The oldest was 68. So it's an intergenerational, interfaith, international, interwoven sisterhood.
And so what are the goals post the workshop?
So after the 12 weeks, the women are inducted into TOA, which is an organization whose letters are kept sacred only for members of the organization. And that's where the real work begins. We do work in the community. We have bonds of sisterhood. Since we are located on 5 continents, when sisters travel, they're catching each other's babies. They're going to each other's graduations. The point of it is to create literally an army of women who are self-aware and who have accessed deeper versions of themselves.
And so for 2023, is that set yet? And
It is set.
Okay.
It is set.
And then how can I?
Yes,
Everyone
you have a personal invitation. This is
a lot.
invitation. So because it's a process, right? So sisters, We open up the applications on July 1st of every year. Sisters apply to the program. We make the program announcements for who was accepted in this year's cohort on August 1st. And this year we will be starting our first classes on September 16th. So you can bypass like all of those steps. Like you'll do the application just like as a formality, but it will be my honor to have you in the program.
Mashallah.
I really do think that every sister should take it. Not because it's my program.
I've seen like I think a friend of mine, Fatima Turner, was in your program.
Yes.
I believe Latifah Adams was in the program.
Yes.
I saw Salima Shaheed from Houston was there. And we saw Lish was in the program.
Yes.
So, mashallah. And so should they go to villageauntie.com when that application is open?
Yes, you can go to villageauntie.com. They can also follow me across social media platforms, primarily Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. But yes, it'll be on villageauntie.com. They can also go to villageauntie.com/links and sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter, people who are signed up for the newsletter get the first dibs on any class. But just remember, July 1st, Foundational Womanhood opens.
Okay, last links. Okay, I will go that. I have one last question. So for how can people advocate for their sexual health needs and rights? Like, are there programs or resources for that?
I think the best way to advocate is through education, learning about your body. And there are a variety of resources for that. If we're talking about within the Muslim community, you have spaces like Heart. You have my platform, of course. You also have books like Habib Akande's A Taste of Honey, where he talks about the Islamic approach to sexology and erotology. But it could also be just as simple as most local public health departments have classes around different issues related to sexual health. You can literally call and say, I want to know more about menopause. I want to know more about this. I want to know how to talk to my child about sex. And there are tons and tons of resources out there. There are also resources available, of course, through cdc.org, but also just having conversation, because you never know who is in your community who has that information. With all of the doctors that we have in the Muslim community and all of us that are working in public health, there's no excuse for us to say that we don't know, but we do have to advocate for ourselves by seeking out that education.
I have one last question. So in the Muslim community, this topic is taboo. And so you're on social media. What has been the response? I mean, is there negative, positive? What's the percentage that you get, and what type of, responses have you been getting?
I've been doing it so long, and the majority of my work is still offline. But when I first came on social media in 2018, I would get people who would send me death threats, rape threats. There were a couple sisters in Philly who tried to get a fatwa against me. And the most hatred that I receive is always from other women. And I don't take offense to that, but I see that as their trauma lashing out at my power. Because they wonder how I can be empowered, and their trauma and pain is speaking. So those are sisters that I want to pull in. And then, you get the brothers who, say whatever. But a lot of that, subhanAllah, has dissipated so much because I stand firm and I never defend myself. I let the Quran and Sunnah defend me. I use a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I use fiqh. I'm trained in Maliki fiqh. So I use my religious and clinical training to support me. I never have to defend myself. So now, alhamdulillah, you get a random person who's just interacting with my profile, and they're like, oh my gosh, did you really say orgasm? Yes, I did. And let me teach you about 17 ways to get there. Because I know that what I'm doing is not haram. I know that it's not raunchy. And I know, I like to shock people, because shocking people shakes them up and it makes them think.
Right. And it's also something that our community, as I said, is taboo. And so we're going from generation to generation, not understanding about, sexual health, our bodies. And then we're that same, understanding we're implementing into our next generation. So we do need to have some, something to shake it up and definitely. Interrupt the cycle.
Yes,
Mashallah. So we're going to bring Preacher back into the stream.
You said 17 ways?
17.
Oh my God. All right, I'm being fooled. Listen, on behalf of myself and the viewers, the community, your Instagram following, just on behalf of people who have come searching, trying to fill that void, I just want to say thank you. You know, a lot of people have in comedy say you got your closing bit. Ain't no closing bit because you're still working. So let me salute you on the work and anything that we can do on our platform, the Shout Out Show. Personally, Preacher Moss, I'm speaking for Sister Satana too. Anything we can do to make that work easier or make that transition a little bit more smoother, you call your brother.
I will.
And you know, like General Order Number 5 from the NOI, your brother's on post.
That's it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. This has truly been an honor. I'm gonna wave this in my husband's face because he's at work. He's gonna be very jealous. But thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me, and I hope this is the first of many opportunities that we have to work together.
Well, you know, I'm gonna reach out once we get off. Just need about 3 minutes of your time.
Okay. Inshallah. Call me because my laptop is about to die. So call me on my phone.
Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that I will call you on the phone. But man, sister, I said, man, sister, we really appreciate you. And may Allah continue to guide and protect you, increase you. Before we let you go, would you mind giving us a dua as we head to the door?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Allah, we ask that you unite the hearts upon what is correct and what is right, that you show us true love from you and show us that love only comes from you. Allow us to have mercy and generosity towards each other and most importantly towards ourselves, Ya Allah, and let all of our actions be consistent with who we are as vicegerents upon this earth, as caliphs upon this earth, and let us always submit to you, for our only purpose in this life is to worship you. Allahumma ameen.
Ameen. That's our show. I told you it's the Village Auntie. 2 words. We out. Hope to see you guys next week. Where we'll be bringing in Minister Eric Muhammad and Minister Robert Muhammad from Muhammad's Mosque number 45 to enlighten us on the weekend, the eve of Savior's Day, to be held in Chicago this year. All right. Thank you guys so much. You've been tremendous. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.